I'd entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I so move.
Second.
Is that Fred and Jay?
Yep.
Yes. Any more discussion? Not, will, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Be opposed? All right. Does that cover the payment of bills too, Rob? That's all that?
Yeah.
Okay.
The minutes and the payment of bills. Yep.
All right. All right. Very good. Guess we'll move on to the SHS report. Tom or Rick or Tony?
This is Tom. You hear me okay?
Yes. Hey, Tony.
Okay. Yeah,
There
Tom's
you
not going to be, Tom's actually, Tom's up in Wisconsin and can't join us tonight, but so I will just give you a little bit about what's going on. Obviously, as we have been for quite a few months now, we're pretty much stuck with, dealing with COVID and the increasing cases that we're seeing locally. We were completely full at the hospital last week. At one point, we had 5 COVID patients in the house. On Monday, we had 5 COVID patients in our ER at one time. So it's getting a little bit out of hand. It has been a little bit better the last couple of days. We've have seen a little bit of a decline as far as the number of admissions, but we're still seeing a lot in our ER. So we're just making some plans now. We should have a ability to open up a COVID unit if we do that on fairly quick notice. So we're working towards that. May possibly move our OB unit back to the second floor to free up some space in the med surge area, and continue our plea with the community to please take precautions and try to adhere to some of the things that's been recommended, because again, we're extremely concerned what's going to happen over Thanksgiving when we start seeing everyone getting together and the repercussions of that when it's all over. So like I said, that's pretty much what we're dealing with right now. And certainly we'll entertain any questions when anyone has any questions about that.
Tony?
Tony,
Yes.
you said you're going to have another space for COVID patients. Is this the parking garage for the ambulances like you had the last time?
No. What we would initially do is utilize the second floor. Again, first step would be to move OB up to the old ICU and use that. Or actually, I guess it's up to the old OB units. We'd be moving them, and then utilizing the OB area downstairs as for more COVID patients. And then it would be expanding the utilization of the second floor. Again, we'd be at that point, we would be doubling up on patients and different things to give us more access if it gets to that.
Good enough.
Tony, can you give us an update
Okay.
on your ability to move patients out if necessary? Is that possible, or is the other hospitals in the area are seeing the same kind of situation?
Yeah, regionally it's problematic in that we had to transfer one out on Monday, and we had to actually transfer them to Denver because there was nothing available locally, and we've not seen any real change in that this week. Everything locally is pretty much filled up.
Thank you.
Tony?
Fred, did you have a question?
Yeah, I did. I was just curious. What kind of a situation we got going on this rapid test? Yeah, the reason I'm asking that is because we know some people that were told it would take it about 24 hours. It's taking 2 to 3 days.
Yeah, and we have been a little limited on the number of tests we've had from the BD Max, our rapid testing.
Okay,
And so we've had to use a little more discretion in the number of people that we're actually utilizing for the BD Max.
yeah,
And kind of prioritize exactly, who gets those and who gets, if you're not symptomatic and we're using more. In fact, we had, the timing was terrible, but the BD Max actually shut down their plant that produces the tests for through the month of October. So we didn't have access to as many tests as we normally would. That's coming back. And so we're getting our regular allotment now. But, we're seeing 120 plus people through our drive-through a day right now. And so it's utilizing a lot of our tests. So we've got to use some discretion on who gets what.
yeah, I appreciate that. I understand it, because everything's a mess right now on this, totally.
Yes.
They're beginning to close everything down. And I know what you guys are doing there because of what's been in the past. And I don't know how we're going to do it, but we got to get these people to get off of their fannies and using that for their brain, because it's not working that way. We just can't get these people to understand these masks work. Now, how do we do it?
Right. Yeah, I don't know, Fred, that it's a struggle. I sent out a letter to the community. I've on Facebook, and but we're still getting the same resistance from the county leadership. I mean, there's still, I heard today that one of our commissioners was saying it is no problem. The hospital has no COVID patients, even though they have been updated regularly about the number of patients we've had in-house and what's going on. And but until we get some local leadership buy-in, it's going to be very difficult and continue to be.
Yes, I understand that, believe me, because of knowing what's going on with them.
Right.
And it's just this whole thing has got to come to a head, because if it doesn't, it's going to blow up in our faces.
Well, it is.
We all know.
Not about it. That's why we're saying, if we just get totally overwhelmed as a system, it's at the point, it's no secret we're starting to see some substantial numbers within our staff. We have 6 staff in quarantine right now. And that's going to continue. And none of the exposures have been through the hospital. It's all been exposures outside in the public is where it's coming from. So.
Well, I'll tell you what, that hospital is as clean as everything you can done there is about as clean as you can possibly get it everywhere.
Right. That's certainly been our goal.
Tony, this is Bill. Are we using remdesivir here?
Honestly do not know if we've actually used that on any of the patients or not. I can certainly.
Tony, related to that, where do we stand with the Pfizer chemical, the vaccine? Are we going to get it?
I think we will. I think we're going to get a limited supply in December. There's going to be a priority on who actually gets those vaccines. And the first being healthcare providers will likely be the first in line to do that. And the nursing homes are actually being addressed separately. They're contracting directly with Pfizer and some other providers to get those vaccines directly. This is a very complicated situation, and that the handling of this vaccine requires a super freezer, basically something that'll take you'll be able to store the vaccine at below minus 84 degrees, I believe is what it actually has to be. And so we actually ordered the freezer to do that. We actually expect that we will be the distribution point for this region, from what we're hearing right now. But again, the supply is going to be limited. We're going to get a limited number of doses, and it requires 2 doses per individual. So, as far as widespread availability, that's going to be well into next year before that actually happens.
You have to have some way to make dry ice if you're going to be distributing from here.
We're trying to work that out. It actually doesn't have to be just dry ice. It has to be dry ice pellets. And there's no one around here that actually has that. So we're trying to figure that out. But again, we will have the freezer in-house to actually store it But the dry ice issue is definitely a problem.
Okay, if that's, is that also your operations report, Tony?
That is, I'll turn it over to Rick for the financial report. If you all don't have any more questions.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Tony. Rick, are you on?
Yes.
Can it wait?
I love Zoom.
Let me see if I can find Rick.
Dean, while we're waiting, I can do a quick foundation report.
Okay,
If nobody else minds moving that up real quick. The only thing I have to report on the foundation is that we put out a job description to hire someone for about 10 hours a week. And I believe we've gotten a little bit of response. I don't know how many we have yet, but we'll be making that decision in the coming weeks.
that's good news. That's good. Did you find Rick, Tony?
I lost him now too.
Yeah, I see that.
This is Leah. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Rick is not joined.
Okay, I'm still looking for him.
Okay, great.
Thanks. I may
Rob,
actually.
yeah, I was say, Rob, if you're going to do our.
Okay, he's getting on right now.
Oh, okay.
Yep. Apparently he was having trouble finding the link, but I just sent it to him.
Okay. Yeah, Tony, I had a conversation with one of the commissioners yesterday, and it got pretty heated at one point on my side, I guess. But they they don't seem to have the same sense of urgency on supporting the governor's mandates, the level orange requirements, and all the things that go with it. So I don't know what else to do, to be honest. They just don't seem to. They don't believe it works. That's what he told me. I don't believe masks work. So.
Yeah, that's yeah. I've heard that myself. I mean, it's just ridiculous that. It was interesting is that I ran into one of the commissioners in the city market, and he was actually wearing a mask, and but the next day on the council meeting, he was not. So.
Yeah, that doesn't
Well,
surprise
now,
me.
is this the outgoing commissioners? Can we look for better cooperation come January, perhaps?
We're hopeful.
We can only hope. Yeah, we can only hope.
We are actually trying to set up some meetings with the incoming commissioners and hopefully, start the year off in a positive position with both of those. So.
Gee, Dino, you and I are the only ones left on the face.
I know, I see that. Everybody else tuned out, maybe.
Yeah, that's what it looks like.
We lost
Hey,
them all.
there's
Oh,
Tony.
there's Tony. I even tried to explain to him the economic side, because we're starting to see it in the business, and not so much from shutdowns, but people are getting sick and can't go to work. And
Right.
and then we've got a couple of construction sites that we really can't access. They told us we could if we wanted to, and I said, well, no, I can't afford my crew to get sick. So we're seeing it. We're starting to see the impacts of it work-wise, unfortunately.
Yeah, and that's obviously that's a concern for us too. The more employees that we have that are sick or in quarantine, and the more difficult it's going to be for us to take care of patients at a time when we're seeing volumes go up. So it's just not a good situation.
Just
I
watch
know.
this thing.
Rick, did you make it on?
Yeah, I am. I'm sorry. I was
Jumping up and
kind of
down.
I was working through our budget, and I had one of those brain farts. So my apologies.
We thought maybe you dozed off or something. So
No, no, that was earlier today. No, I'm kidding.
yeah, sure.
Right.
Wanted to see if you guys had any questions so far. If you had any questions about the financials or anything right now.
Well, I do have one question.
Sure.
In our packet, we have your text of explaining things, and under income statement, you say provider salaries were above budget by $38,000, and staff salaries were above budget by $289,000.
Right.
Why the big mess?
Basically, what we did is when we set up the budget for September, we budgeted as we would only anticipate about $9 million of revenue. So when we budgeted it with that, we knew that we were going through the project for the rooftop unit, and at that time we thought that we would not have. We thought that we'd be out of commission a little bit longer than the 5 days. So if you look at it with respect to where we stood for September, September actually exceeded budget from a revenue standpoint. And if you're going to have, and in order to generate those revenues, you've got to have those salary expenses as well.
Okay.
So.
Well,
Go ahead.
no, that seems like a legitimate explanation. If you're going to be down longer, it's just a good explanation, but I'd have never figured that one out on my own.
No, but I mean, but if you look at and that's okay. I mean, so what we did is when we were anticipating, and Dean will remember that some of the discussions that we had, we were looking at maybe 7 or 8 days of downtime. And Jay, I think you remember that as well. Yeah.
That was the original plan. That was the original thought anyway.
And you were down only, 4 days?
We were down about 5 days. So so when you look at it from a standpoint, if our surgery's down, then we're on diversion for a lot of stuff, because any potential cases you bring to the ED that might require surgery would have been sent to another place, another facility.
Okay. Well, good explanation. Thank you.
No, you're welcome.
Rick, it sounds like the providers got busy and did some work.
We did. I can tell you this. We looked in September, and Tony and I did this, and we looked at what our total joint replacements were, and that's shoulders, knees, and hips. And last year in 2019, a non-COVID year, we did about 30. This year, with the addition of Dr. Jones, Braden Jones, who started in early March, we're at 60 through the end of September. So Doug's done almost as many as he did last year through the end of September in a COVID year, and or actually a couple of more. He's done 32. Braden did 28, and then we also did for October. We've done 10 joint replacements. So Tony and I were talking about that today. So we're keeping a considerable amount of our orthopedic business, at Southwest Health Systems based on Doctors Jones and Baggy. So, just kind of hitting some of the highlights. Excuse me. Cash. We continued to do well with respect to cash of about $5 million, and so our operating cash did decrease slightly by $52,000. We did get our EMS grant that Matt Lindsay wrote for us. Inventory was just a slight increase of about $12,000. We're going to do an inventory count here over Thanksgiving holidays because we do 2 per year. So we know we have about $300,000 of stuff that it's still good, but it's not going to be utilized by anybody in our facility. So we're going to write that off and figure out if we can either restock it or use it with a medical mission or something like that. We did have non-patient AR, and that's some of the amortizations and forgivenesses with some of the physician receivables and medical loans. Our fixed assets did decrease by about 165, and that was depreciation offset with a few things that we brought online service wise. One of those items was a UV cleaning machine for about $67,000 that can go in and hit a room pretty hard with UV light to kill infectious disease viruses on surfaces. From a liability standpoint, we did decrease our liabilities by about $115,000. Payroll liabilities after we paid out some PTO when Dr. Medina left and a couple other providers, payroll liabilities only increased by about $23,000. And then current liabilities did slightly increase by about $170,000. And we only recognized about $300,000 of PPE/CARES Act stimulus monies. So, outside of that, we didn't have a bad month. So our revenue over expense was a loss of $167,000. But year to date, we have a net income of $638,000. The earnings before interest, depreciation, and amortization is $320,000. And year to date, EBITDA improved to about $5.2 million. And we're ahead of our EBITDA budget by about $772,000. So doing well there. From a supplies explanation, again, we talked a little bit about the total joints. We also did over 3,500 retail pharmacy prescriptions. We also had something that we hadn't used in the ED since Tony and I've been here, which was a clotting drug, Andrexa. So that was $34,000. And so that's why we had somewhat of a supply increase. The other thing is we bought some orthopedic equipment, some power sources and so forth. That was expense that should have been capitalized. We took care of that in the month of October. And then we had a reclass of some of our leases related to our CareLink pagers. So we took care of that. Very appreciative of the sales tax for the donation, which offset.
See you tomorrow.
The narrative is narrative is derived from basically the income statement, balance sheet, and want to see if y'all had any other questions.
Rick,
I think you've answered mine.
Okay.
Rick, the only question I had is, if there's an increase in COVID cases in the community, do you see that
Right.
affecting surgery, med, other things on the financial side?
It potentially it could. I mean, and that's up to the guidance that we're going to get from the state, and Tony can probably address this if they tell us that, you know, and I don't like to call them elective surgeries. Everybody else does, but if they're saying, you know, non-life-threatening surgeries, yeah, that could impact us some from a surgical perspective or maybe a diagnostic perspective. But as Tony and I were talking today, you know, we're seeing some admissions. We saw a few related to COVID, but we also saw stuff related to kind of the normalcy of the seasons. You know, we've seen a case with pneumonia. We've seen a couple of other admissions just based on a change in weather patterns. You know, when it gets cold, you know, we have COVID, plus we have all the other stuff that the cold brings, such as pneumonia and bronchitis and respiratory ailments as well. So, you know, to answer your question and then take it 2 steps further, potentially, we do have a couple of providers that are surgeons that are going to be out the month of November for a few weeks and some vacations. So, you know, that's obviously going to impact some volumes, but we are trending.
Oh, sure, Rick.
I'm sorry. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. And we are trending
Your
fairly.
internet connection is unstable.
Mine is, or maybe it's just me.
I think you're coming through all right. I think Fred, your connection might be a little
I
unstable.
think you're right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. So yeah. So basically, so we're looking through, you know, just kind of projected for those volumes and so forth, for some physicians being out on leave. Yeah, I mean, we could see that, but it's going to take a state mandate telling us to suspend elective type procedures. And right now, Tony and I were on a conference call this afternoon, and we haven't heard anything as of yet. But Tony, you may want to cover that also.
No, I mean, yeah, you're right. I mean, we have no intention of doing that right now. But, you know, and last time, even when they implemented a freeze on elective procedures in the state, they exempted rural and critical access hospitals. So it's not likely that would ever become required. And the only reason we did it before was we started running low on some PPE and some pharmaceuticals that we needed for anesthesia. So, and we don't have that issue going on right now. So hopefully that's not going to hit us.
Thank you.
No, great question. Great question on that. I mean, yeah, what we did, we made a conscious decision to staff up or to stock up on about a 4.5 to 5 month PPE supply based on COVID usage patterns this spring. And so there's a couple of things that may be hard for us to get, but we're pretty well stocked for PPE with respect to visors and masks and gloves and gowns and things like that.
And now that I've said that, the only exception to that would be is if we do start seeing problems with our staffing, you know, with the staff actually getting sick to the point that we don't have adequate staff to take care of it. I mean, that could be
So didn't know if you guys had any. I mean, we're nailing our ratios, as you guys can see. We're hitting on our ratios. We're at about we were projecting in October to be about 99 days cash on hand. Currently, we're at 101, but we finished the month at slightly over 100 days cash on hand. We hit our respective ratios. We did talk with SHS, you guys, Kelly, Keenan. We will show basically our ratios by quarter. So you guys will have that. So it's easy. The document's easier to read. And we have our statement of cash flows in here, as well as showing how we're doing with respect to hitting our business office goals and trends and objectives. So we're at this is our measuring stick for how we're doing with respect to billing and collections. And I know you guys are interested in that. For September, we were at 121% cash as a percent of our goal. Our AR days were 40 days for the hospital, 37 for the clinics. And we're hitting along all those metrics. The only one in question is percent of commercial insurance. And that's because we still have a few appeals that are out there with getting some of our new providers added to contracts and so forth. So outside of that, again, in spite of this being 2020, we're doing well financially. And that's all I have, unless you guys have any questions.
Well, Rick, I want to say that I'm real pleased with how you and Tony have brought this thing around. It's always so good to hear those kinds of figures.
Yes, ma'am. No, well, thank you. And speaking on behalf of Tony, it's a lot more than us. It's Karen. It's all of our directors and all of our staff. So we're blessed to work with a great complement of individuals. And two great boards who, from my understanding, are going to end their meeting in 45 minutes. One of those boards.
Maybe.
Thanks, Rick. No pressure there.
But thank you for the kind words.
Thank you, Rick.
Okay, moving on. Rick, you're
Second,
done.
Rick's-
We're moving on to Rob. There's no more left.
Thank you.
All right. For the financial report, I think we should do the budget first. Heidi is on with us. Heidi Trainer's on with us somewhere on the Zoom.
Thank you, Rob.
Thanks, Heidi.
And so everybody has a copy of the budget, the changed budget. Rob and I had met here this last month and we changed a few items on there. One of them was for the what we're estimating for the 2020 year. We've added a refund from SHS for some equipment of $350,000, and also the DOLA that you just spoke about for $150,000. We expect to receive by the end of this year, 2020. And then for the 2021 budget, we changed the capital outlay to $1 million from $1.4 million. So those were the only two changes, and everything else stayed the same.
Great. Heidi, should we open it up? Should we open up for public comment for a minute?
You bet.
In case we have anything?
Yes.
Leah, can you see if there's any comment on the YouTube?
No comment as of now. YouTube's has an error, right? But they're working on correcting it. But there's no comments that I'm seeing.
All right, thank you.
So Heidi, you need us to approve this budget tonight. Is that correct?
No, Dean, the next step is we have to wait for it's usually about December 10th when we receive the final assessment from Montezuma County. And then
Okay.
the next board meeting, we will finalize it and vote on it.
Okay.
If we don't have anything else on the budget, and since we don't have to vote on it tonight, I can kind of go on with the budget, or with the financial report, unless anyone else had any budget questions.
Yeah, go ahead, Rob. I don't think we have any.
So this month, our incoming tax revenue is 157, 167 and 59 cents. That's the regular tax. And then the two health services taxes, one is $1,515.47, and the other is $16,286.68. So we will be sending a payment over to SHS in addition to the regular payment of bills. The only other quick thing I had is that in the last meeting, after we approved purchasing the CDs, we've been able to purchase so far $245,000 of a 3-month CD at 0.05 annual percentage rate from Bank United. Daniel Moser, who I'm working with at Vector Wealth, he's said that the CD market is pretty dry at the moment, so he's having trouble finding CDs to buy. But so far of the 600 we approved, we've been able to purchase 245. And then the one other thing is I wanted to schedule to have him come to our January meeting, and he can talk about the treasury type investment that I included in the packet last month. And I think that's all I've got. Does anybody else have any questions on the financials?
This is Brandon. I got a little question. For government entities, districts, special districts, have you looked into the Colorado Trust Plus? They're offering, on this other committee I sit on, they're offering right now 0.75% on the Colorado Trust Plus. And we're doing pretty good. It's with the water district, Dolores Water District, but we're getting pretty good deals. I think this entity here could invest in that because they're a district.
Mm-hmm.
It's only for like districts and special government things. It's not really for anyone else. So I think that'd be it.
Thank you. I will, the next time I talk to Daniel to schedule the meeting, I'll check in with him about that. I think that was one of the options. I'm not 100% sure on that, but I'll check in about it.
Okay.
And he knows like the limitations of what we can invest in, what we can't invest in.
Okay, thanks.
He asked to come talk to us in January. Thank you.
Thanks, Rob.
Oh, and Rob, before you quit,
Yeah.
You had made that telephone call to us interim between last month's meeting and this month's meeting about a Davis bill for about $70,000.
Yeah.
You think? I think that something should be said about that, just so that it is in the media, the
In the
minutes,
record. Absolutely.
so that it's recorded.
Sure. In between last meeting and this meeting, Ralph got in touch with me about some outstanding Davis bills that apparently had gone to my junk mailbox. I hadn't seen them. So because they were outstanding, I sent an email out to the board and gave Gayla a call, and the board approved a check for, let me pull up the exact number because I don't have it in front of me. But approved to pay those bills in the interim with a check in between meetings. Just one second, I'm pulling up the email on my phone. All right, so those invoice totals were $18,397.29, $27,360.65, and $24,359.04. So we paid those three invoices in between the meetings with the approval of the board email vote.
So what was the total?
Sorry.
Got it.
The total is. The total was 70,116.98.
Thank you.
Thanks, Gayla.
Okay, thanks, Rob.
I'm sorry, what?
I said, thanks, Rob.
Thanks.
Still didn't understand what you were saying. Are we gonna?
I said, thank you, Rob.
Oh, I thought you said Jay. I'm sorry. I
That's
got
all
a
right.
question for Rob. Do you know anything about repurchase agreements?
I don't.
Rick, do you?
Rick isn't there.
Oh, okay.
I am
When
here.
I-
I was just muted.
When I was working
muted.
with the city,
Jay,
they were doing
Jay, I know
overnight
about
repurchase agreements.
Go ahead, Jay.
When I was working for the city, we were, our financial director was making some good money for the city using repurchase agreements overnight and over the weekends. It's usually purchasing, well, I don't know exactly how it works, but they purchase agreements for the nighttime when there's no activity on our part, but they have some on their part, and they pay an interest on that. And well, it wouldn't be that much for our hospital, but that city had quite a bit of money that was not being spent during the night and during the weekends. And that's how they would make that arrangement with the big banks to have the big banks sell them the stuff and get interest on it. I just thought it's a possibility that if we have any extra money.
Yeah. Basically what Jay's talking about is an overnight sweep account. And I mean, you guys are the MCHD board is with Vectra. So you can talk to Paul and that team about that if it falls within your investing purview.
Okay. Yeah, I'll look into it. Thank you, Jay. Thanks.
But I don't think it does fall within our investing purview. Isn't that how Orange County ended up going bankrupt?
No, they just spent too much money.
No, it was investments that got them. They were.
I think in that case there was a little bit of fraud.
No, I don't believe there was. It was just a matter of overextending investments that they should never have been investing in to begin with.
Well, and the thing I was going to say is I don't think that our goal with any investment should really be to be making a huge return. I think it's basically we want to keep up with inflation and not be losing money that way, but with as little risk as possible, and within the rules that are required.
Yeah, and I really don't think that the rules allow us to invest in things like that. Besides, doing a sweep account takes a lot of work. You know, you have to invest Friday evening at quitting time and get it back Monday morning, and just a lot of fiddling with it.
Thanks, Sarah.
Okay. Any other questions for Rob?
No.
All right, I guess, Ralph, you're up.
Okay, thanks, Dean. I've got three things that I'll try and report on for the board tonight. Won't try and take too much time. I'll try and be quick about it. First is the 2020 scope of work. I sent all of you yesterday evening a final draft of a request for proposals for the 2021 facilities improvement work, not 2020, if I said 2020. At the last meeting, you asked me to start discussions with Davis, SSR, and SHS, put together a scope of work for 2021 with a budget of $3 million. That $3 million budget figure, I know you'll remember, came from $1 million of SHS COVID funds, $1 million DOLA grant, and $1 million matching contribution from MCHD. And we were told at that time that SHS needed to spend that $1 million by June 30th of next year. After I looked at the grant, the DOLA grant schedule, it became clear that under the best of circumstances, we wouldn't know anything about a DOLA award until mid-July next summer. So after discussing this in several of our team meetings, we decided that we'd put together a 2021 project with a scope of work of $1 million, and that would be the SHS COVID money. Then if we find out in next July, that we've been awarded a DOLA grant, or if that time MCHD feels like they can put money up that they hadn't planned on, then we would be able in this RFP to add work through a change order to the contractor that we'd selected. So been working with Davis and SSR to put this RFP together. It's got a phase one, which would be the first $1 million worth of work. And then it's got a phase two that delineates some work that could be added by change order once we've got a contractor on board, if we find that we've got money available. So some of you have been in on those calls, and we had we had a good meeting yesterday with the facilities committee, where I explained this RFP to them. They gave their approval to bring it to both boards for the board's approval. And I sent you all basically the final version of that RFP yesterday evening. Kelly's office also has this RFP. I don't know if they've been able to look at it or not. I also sent you a kind of a scoring matrix, which would sets up a framework for scoring proposals that we might get in from contractors. The project wouldn't necessarily be awarded to the low bidder. Price is the largest factor, given the heaviest weight in this scoring matrix, but it's not the only thing that's considered. I also consider the proposer's experience, their specific approach to our project, and their schedule. So those things would also be considered and evaluated and scored. So I put this stuff in front of you, and if you have any questions, I'll try and answer them. If you feel like this is something that you want to move forward with, then then I will move it forward with Davis and SSR, and hopefully we'll get this RFP out for bids, get it out here in November, get bids in before Christmas, and then be able to award a contract in early next year if we get back prices that we can live with. So that's where that is. And if you got any questions on that, I'll try and answer them. Okay.
Yeah, I think we're going to look for an approval tonight just to move forward on that from our board. I think we need to document that we approve moving forward on the RFP. And yeah, if anybody's got any questions, feel free to ask them, please.
Should we do that now? Just do an approval vote before we move on to the next item?
We can, yeah.
Yeah.
I'd look for a motion to approve that.
I think
If
it's-
nobody else has, if nobody else has any other questions, I would make a motion to approve the 2021 infrastructure upgrade, our general contractor RFP provided in our board packet.
If I could say one thing, Rob, this is,
Yeah.
Kelly's office is still in the process of reviewing this. I don't expect that they'll come up with much of an issue, but I'd want to have their review and any input back from them before we went forward with it. And even if you guys approve it, it would be subject to Kelly's approval too, I would think. Kelly's concurrence with how it's set up. So.
Okay, I'll add a pending our attorney's approval to the motion.
Second.
Was that Fred?
Yeah, Fred seconded.
Okay.
Was there any more discussion or questions?
I think it should be mentioned that the reason for this $1 million is because that has to be spent by July. That was that COVID money that was given to the SHS.
Yes.
And this gets us started. It gets us off and running with trying to find a contractor to do this. This equipment that's included in this first $1 million, one of the pieces of equipment is RTU3 that services the lab and some administrative areas. The other piece of equipment is the kitchen pickup air unit. Both of these pieces of equipment probably have, after the submittals have been approved, probably have a manufacturing time of maybe 4 months, manufacturing and shipping time. So yeah, it'll be important for us to be able to move this forward if we're going to stay on track for having equipment on the job, maybe, next summer.
Okay, if there's no more comments or questions, go ahead.
Yeah, this is Tony. Just guess that this process gets a little bit confusing, but obviously, if the intent is this is an RFP for SHS to spend $1 million, before it goes anywhere, our board is going to have to approve it also. So.
Correct. Yeah, we're looking for approval from both boards before we send it off.
Right.
Correct.
Okay, I'll call the vote. Is all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Oh, okay. Okay, Ralph, you had.
Yeah, two more things. I'll just update you. I sent out a budgetary estimate for the water line extension. Just a little bit of explanation. Last month, you asked me to put together a budget for this issue that you've been talking about in board meetings for probably 6 months now. And that is buying MVI water and piping it from north of the hospital down into the hospital property. Last month, we talked about some of the problems that we would have going through the city's conservation easement. After that meeting last month, I took one of the local contractors that does this kind of work out, and I showed them the project, talked to them about it. They gave me some budget figures that I will go over with you real quickly. The good news is that they priced it two different ways. They priced it going out from where we would connect to the private water line north of us, going out to the Mildred Road right of way and up the right of way, thus avoiding going across the city's conservation easement property entirely. And actually their price to do that, to go up the Mildred Road right of way, was actually cheaper than their price to go through the conservation easement property. So that was good. That just clears up a bunch of problems, in my opinion, dealing with the city over this thing. So I've put this budgetary estimate together for you. I've talked to a number of people about this to gather information. I'll just hit the highlights here. I've got a Davis fee proposal in there for design. I've got, if you skip down the list just a little bit, I've got $11,000 in to buy into the pipeline. And that's per Keith Evans. I asked him what that would cost, and he thought it would be $6,000 to buy in, and then $1,000 a share to use the pipeline. And I put in $25,000 for 5 shares of water. I actually put in $45,000 for the construction. The estimate they gave me was about $35,000, but I went in and I added money for additional footage, because I'm not sure where we'll tie in on the hospital property. I added money for utility locating and rock hammering. We know there's some sandstone out there, and a few other things. So in all, I've got a construction estimate of $45,000 in this thing. I've also got legal fees estimated in there. I've got my fees estimated in there, and the total comes to $109,000. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have about this. Just to refresh your memory, between June of 2019 and June of 2020, a 12-month period, the hospital used city water for irrigating the site for 7 of those months, and they used a total of 5.4 million gallons, and the cost to the hospital was $17,800 for one watering season. If that puts it kind of in perspective for you.
So Robert, will you elaborate what I told you on the phone about the irrigation, how much it would cost?
I'm sorry, Brandon, say that again, would you please?
Will you elaborate what I told you over the phone about how much the MVI would cost, the difference?
I'm not sure I know, Brandon. I'm not sure I know what you're talking about.
Okay, so they used 5.4 million gallons of city water at $17,000 approximately. If you had 5 shares of MVI water, owned them, okay? So the initial cost would be and it could vary. So it's initial 1 share is $5,000. You may be able to get cheap for that. So you're out that, you own that, and it's like a piece of property. Then every year it's based on MVI's budget cost per share. So for 5 shares, but this year it's approximately what he has in here. It's about like 400 and something, $500. Okay, so for $500, if you had 5 shares for this year, 1 share was worth 1.2 million gallons of water. So you could have got for 500, if you had MVI shares, for $500, you could have got 4.5 million gallons for $500. That's your difference between city and MBI, just so you guys have got the idea. And since I've got you on the deal here, you've got this Davis design, your little notes on your deal down here for pumping.
Yes.
At the city park at the BMX on the Cortez line, there's 70 pounds of pressure there. So I don't think you're going to have to worry about pumping from where you're at. And if you stick with the 3-inch line, is that what you proposed, Ralph?
They'll have to tell me. That's why I've got a design fee in here, because it's not just pumping, it's line size, it's the connections at each end, it's filtering. So that's why I asked them to give me a price to design the thing. I suspect it'll be a 3-inch line, and I don't have any pump costs in here. I don't have any electrical costs in here to run power to a pump. This is assuming that there's enough pressure there where we tie on to feed the system, operate the system that we've got there.
Okay, I don't think you'll need the pump thing because there's quite a bit. The other deal is depending on what Keith Evans' supply line is, size, whether it's 4-inch, 3-inch, I would recommend whatever size his is to continue the same size to the hospital property so that you at least have the volume, because if you restrict it down, then you're going to lose. So try to continue the same volume of water, whatever Keith Evans' main line is, on over to hospital property. Just to FYI.
Yeah, and that's part of the reason, Brandon, that I've got some money in here to do some potholing, because we don't really know what we're tying on to yet, and we don't at his property, and we don't know where we're tying or how we're tying on to the hospital property. He told me he thought he had a 6-inch PVC. He actually called it something besides PVC. He called it PVI. I had not heard that.
PIP. It's a high pressured PVC line.
Okay. So he thought it was a 6-inch.
I got one more comment and then I'll shut up. So even if the hospital proceeds with this, just keep in mind, the idea is if you're willing to do this or whatever, you need to get the pipe to your property. You do not have to buy this water, because you could lease the water initially for much cheaper, so that you can see how many shares you actually need for that year. And then you can try to buy, because the buying process may take a little while. So just keep that in mind.
So I have a comment about buying the water. So I don't know if you remember, I met with the county commissioners this summer trying to see if they would sell us some of the 20 shares that they own that they're not currently using. And they promptly shut me down. Well, since that's happened, they've come to realize they've got to get some water over at their property at their brand new courthouse that the city says they've got to get landscaped. So now they want to be friends again. And they've found out that, or I told them that we were looking to do a pipeline, and they have shown an interest in cost sharing. It wouldn't really be a cost share. We would still be paying for the pipeline to our property. Then they would take the line from there over to their property. But we would have use of whatever shares we needed for both of us, and we wouldn't have to buy that. Now there's pros and cons to that. Obviously, we're not spending 25 grand for water, but we also don't own the water, and we have to figure out some kind of lease with them that would give us long-term use of that water. We wouldn't just want them yanking it away. But there's a chance that they may want to work on this with us. And so I just wanted to throw that out there, that we may not have to buy water if they decide to extend their shares. Now they need us.
Dean, do you remember how much additional capacity there was in the pipeline?
So Keith told me that pipeline, when they set it up, it's got, every owner has 150%. So I believe there's theoretically at full capacity, there's still 50% capacity left in that pipe. But keep in mind, if we're going to buy access and we got to have our shares in the counties and we're not buying water, we're probably going to be spending more money for access to get more shares in there. So it could change a little bit on what they're going to require on their side and what we're going to require. But anyway, I'm just throwing that out there, that we may not have to pay for water unless we want to.
Let me elaborate a little bit that on the inside ticket. So there's in that line, there is room for 10 more shares in there. There is not room for any more unless I change the delivery box at the main gate.
And I don't, yeah, and I mean, I don't know, Brandon, it seems like 5 shares. I know I've got 5 shares of water in my place and I have way more water than I could use. So
I think as far as hospital district, they need to, like I told Ralph, you need to get your line to your property. Once you get your line to your property, and you get, like I say, if you start out big, you don't want to downsize from what Keith Evans has.
right.
Because then you're restricting your options. You need to keep it the same size that he has, the supply line, to your property. And then from there, you can expand. Even though, let's say you're going 10-inch, and you go 10-inch over there, you don't have to take the full capacity of that pipe. You can take your little 5 shares or whatever, but at least you've got the infrastructure in there to expand after that. Because if you go over with I heard Ralph say something about 6-inch. And then when I talked to him on the phone, he was talking about 3-inch. If you go 3-inch, you're restricted with that 3-inch. And as things change and everyone needs more water, you're restricted only what that 3-inch can do. So you need to, initially when you're planning this infrastructure, start out with whatever Mr. Evans has and come over at least to your property with what he has, and then you've got, room for improvement, I guess you'd say.
If the board would like, I can follow up on my conversation with the commissioners and see if they're still interested in that plan, and see what their requirements are going to be. Because Ralph, you're going to want to know what their requirements are and what ours are. But yeah, I agree with Brandon. You never downsize.
Right.
I actually upsized my line at my house from 1.25 to 2-inch, and yeah, so you don't ever downsize. So if the board wants me to, I can pursue that conversation with the commissioners and see what their interest is.
You might be able to get some buy-in too to help with the line project,
I think what they're leaning towards is we'll pay for our line, and where we stop, then they'll pay for their line.
Okay.
But if we buy the access, they'll provide the water.
Okay, I got you.
That's kind of and that's not written in stone. That is a back channel over a beer conversation, but that may be something that they'd be interested in. So I can pursue that, and we can try to get something formally done if that's and then get a proposal agreed on by both sides. So.
If I could interject, Dean, what you just said, if you don't buy water from Keith Evans, is he still going to be willing to let you tie on and bring
So
water?
We're not buying water from Keith Evans. We're buying access. We're buying water from whoever we can get water from.
So you'd still buy access. Yeah. You'd still buy access from Keith then.
Yes. Yeah, we still. Yeah. Good. Yeah, we still buy the access from Keith, and that's I don't think he's got any water he wants to sell. When I visited with him, he didn't really act like he wanted to sell any water, but he's willing to sell some access.
Dean,
So
what's the size of his pipe there?
I thought I remembered it being a 4-inch pipe, but at his property, when we walked the property, when Keith and I walked it on that south side by his road, I don't know what size it is coming into his property on the north end, but on the south end, I thought it was a 4-inch line coming in, or that he had a riser of 4-inch riser. Now, I don't know what's in the ground. Just because your riser is 4-inch, it could be 8-inch in the ground. I don't have any idea. But it looked like it was 4-inch coming out of the ground to me, if I remember right. But we can tie in down below. I don't really think Keith cared. You know, the thing is, once you fill the pipe, it really doesn't matter with our special pressurized system. It's just kind of, you got a lot of water in that pipe. So nobody's going to be short water on that line for sure.
Dean, the one other thing we had talked a little bit about in previous meetings was the possibility of doing a cost share with SHS on the project. Is that something like we could ask our attorney to work with them, with their attorneys to develop a cost share plan for the project, assuming that we both want to move forward with it?
I suppose we could. We probably want to talk with Tony first and see if if he wants to do that, you know, and see if he'd be interested in that.
Yeah, we actually, our board had actually already discussed that because Tom and I presented it to him, and I thought we had mentioned that last month, but our board approved contribution of $35,000. We didn't know exactly what the total price was going to be, but they've already approved at least that.
Oh, well, thank you. Yes, that'd be great. I mean, and if we don't buy the water, that's a $60,000 right off the top right there. So
Still buying it from the city.
So
what's that? Oh yeah, it's cheaper than buying it from the city.
So Dean, I guess
we'll take that MVI water any day.
So Dean, I guess the next thing I need to know before I start anybody designing this is if the county actually does want to tie on to the line, then, and I agree with what Brandon said completely about extending the pipe the same size as what you're tying onto. But then we might want to take it that size all the way through to wherever we stop on our property.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I'd like to know if they're really serious, then we want to know that when we start designing this thing.
Yeah, and I'll get with Brandon, if you don't mind, Brandon. We'll have a conversation about it. Because you're obviously smarter at that.
You know, it might be best if Ralph and I and whoever else meet on site. That way we can look and.
Yep.
And there's a few things that we're missing here that I can see that may get us in trouble down the road or something that I can help out. I don't really want to talk about unless we're out there on site.
Okay, and I'll visit with the commissioners and see if they're serious.
But even with this proposal, I think if the board's thinking about moving forward on this, you probably ought to start getting a hold of this Davis outfit and start doing. You don't have to do everything on this proposal, but try to get a hold of Davis and try to at least sign some kind of an agreement with Mr. Keith Evans. You know, because if something happens, then there you are. So can I get now? What are you gonna do?
Yeah, well, and actually that kind of ties into something I was going to say is that if we were to go forward with the county. I think we would probably want some kind of agreement that guarantees the water going forward to the hospital grounds rather than us putting in investment and then if sometime 25 years from now, they want to move water over somewhere else and they don't want to water at the courthouse, that we would still have access to the water that we kind of tied up in this agreement.
Dean?
Yeah. Yes, Jay.
Boy, I have a question. Does the district own property to the south of the MOB, that vacant land?
Yes.
So wouldn't you want to have the main water, irrigation water supply at least to that property line?
Well, no, I'd have the county pay for it personally. The county commissioners from where we stop. I mean, we could probably take it to our property line. I'm not real
Well,
sure.
in case that property ever gets developed, then you got water supply for irrigation. That's all.
Yeah,
I was thinking
I mean,
about.
if they're going to take it through there, and I'm not sure where their property line is, and if that's another wetlands down there in the bottom that they're going to have to deal with. But I thought that we owned to the bottom of the draw, and I thought the county owned from the bottom on up to the sheriff's building, but don't quote, because we looked at that for solar at one point years ago. But I don't know how far down. We'd have to have our attorney look into that and find out where that property line is. But yeah, Jay, we probably ought to get it at least to our property line down there.
I can show you where it's at. I dealt with that for a long time.
Does it go to the bottom of the draw, Fred? I thought it did.
Pardon?
Doesn't it go to the bottom of the draw down there?
It goes all the way goes down. You know, the fence that's made to the west of where the nursing home is now. You go down there and there's a hub right in line with that fence down. We got 4.5 acres there.
Okay, I thought we had some land there. Yeah.
Yeah, there is 4.5. And our line now, our property line comes up to where that phone pedestal is. We bought, I can't remember. I had to buy some property from Blair and that group back so we could get the road where it's at now. Because where it was before, our property line went right down the middle of that, came on an angle and right down the middle of the road out to Mildred. So we bought the property so we could just leave that road where it was at from Blair and his group of people then.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
Mr. Chairman,
I'll visit with
Brandon. I got a question. So is there a way we can meet before the next board meeting in December on site?
Brandon, I can meet you out there anytime. We might want Dean.
Yeah,
And,
like Dean or whoever else is kind of interested.
yeah.
I think if we kind of look at it on site, I can give you a few other tidbits before our next meeting. Then you can summarize this proposal you have down, condense it down. Because the main objective is here is you got to get the water to your property before you buy the water or do anything with the water. Because if you do that, whether you get through the county or you buy, but you can't get it to your place, you're SOL. So you need to figure out, we need to figure out this line to the property before you move in county, anyone else. We got to get that done. Once you get that done, then that opens the door to buying water, getting it from the county, expanding, moving on. But it would be best we met on site so we could do this process, condense this budget a little bit to get the water to the property. And then from there, we'll go to step 2. Instead of trying to combine it all in one. That would be my suggestion.
I'm available to meet whenever it's, probably whenever it's convenient for you and Dean, Brandon. So if you guys want to just
What do you got, Dean?
set a time.
I think, I mean, are you looking for a specific day?
Well, I know. So let's see, what's today, Wednesday? Tomorrow I can meet.
I could meet tomorrow, but I could meet Friday about around noon or so.
Yeah, that would work.
Does that work for you, Ralph?
Yes, I believe it does.
All right, let's just shoot for that.
So
should-
where are we gonna meet?
We just meet in that gravel parking lot next to the EMS building there.
So they do COVID testing, so that's full. Let's just meet on the back road, the back there by the walk-in clinic or somewhere.
Yeah, that's fine.
Will that work
That,
on that?
that's
Cottonwood, I guess it
Cottonwood.
is,
Yeah, that's Cottonwood right there. We just meet
at noon.
noon on Friday.
So let's do that. Then we can condense this budget and then we can get something to the board to approve at least construction to the property. And then we'll split it in 2 stages here.
Yep.
Does that sound okay?
Yeah, and I'll try to get in line with what the county's looking to do, so we have some kind of idea what's going on there.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
Jump in there, but I was just going to try to expedite it here a little. Sorry.
okay.
All right.
I'll be there Friday at noon. One other quick thing that Bridget has, or Leah has had up on the screen here. That was the third thing, just the retaining wall replacement cost. The total cost for the retaining wall replacement ended up being $102,000. When I came to you 3 or 4 months ago and thought that we were going to have to tear out the part of the parking lot and some of the curb and gutter and maybe a light pole in there to replace the wall. I told you it could be as high as 150,000. We met out there before construction started and we were able to figure out ways to shift the wall over, stay out of the parking lot, and that's why it came in that much lower. But that the cost for that, I've given all the documents to Kelly. He's dealing with the insurance company, and he hasn't told me that he needs anything else other than what I've given him so far.
Thanks, Ralph. Ralph, I just wanted to confirm that Kelly's handling all the bill stuff on that through the insurance and that I don't need to do anything with that. Is that correct?
Well, Kelly is the one that asked me to put all of it together for him. I did that last Monday and 2 Mondays ago, first Monday in November, I did it and sent it to Kelly that day. So he's got this information and he was, to my knowledge, dealing with the insurance company.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you, Ralph. Okay, if there's nothing else for Ralph, we can move on to Bryson. Are you still awake, Bryson?
Yeah.
I think your beard's gotten bigger, Bryson.
Yeah, I think it has. Well, I can segue right off of what you guys were just talking about with that retaining wall and tell you that we have been speaking with the insurance company and have submitted the cost to them. There's $100,000 in coverage. And so we're working on getting that release to the board to sign, then they'll issue payment. So Rob, the only thing that there might be is that extra $2,000 would need to be paid by the district.
Okay, yeah, once you get that release, just let me know and we'll include it in the payment of bills for the next meeting, if there is any overage there that we need to pay.
That sounds good. And then additionally on the RFP document that Ralph's preparing, we have received it and began looking at it. I know, I think we just got it this afternoon. So I've gone through it. Kelly and Keenan have told me they've looked at it. But I think that one of my questions was whether or not this is going to be an integrated project delivery method proposal or
No,
not.
it's going to be a hard bid project.
Okay. All right.
excuse me, I was muted there for a minute. It's a hard bid project with a scoring evaluation that takes into consideration more than just price. So we've got a way to score any proposals that we get based on experience, based on their approach, the contractor's approach to our specific project, and then based on their schedule. So we've got a way to differentiate besides price. I don't know if that answers your question, Bryson, or not, but
Yeah,
price is the biggest component of the scoring. It's worth 40% of the evaluation. And then experience of the firms is worth 20%. Their narrative approach to the work, they're asked to give us a specific approach to how they'll deal with the work. That's worth 20%. And then their schedule is also worth 20%. So it's a weighted score.
okay. Perfect. Other than that, I know the board asked us to work with Rob a little bit on the investments, and that did come up with Jay's question on repurchase agreements. I know Gayla mentioned she didn't believe that was authorized for special districts. Rob, that's in the packet I sent you. I think that is specifically authorized for special districts. Whether or not you guys want to do that, obviously is up to you. Other than that, the only thing I've got left is we need to make sure that Brandon takes his oath of office. And I wasn't sure how the board wanted to do that. An officer on the board can swear Brandon in, or you guys can designate myself to go ahead and read him his oath to repeat. Obviously, we're not in person here, so then Brandon, you'll need to come by the office at some point to sign that oath, and Dean, you need to get your signature on the notice of appointment.
Okay, I would swear him in, but I wouldn't know what to say, Bryce. I don't have it in front of me. I would just say, Brandon, you're in. Yes or no? That'd be the end of it. So,
Yes.
blood oath. So I guess, Bryson, if you've got it there in front of you,
Okay.
go for it.
Brandon, if you want to raise your hand, and then repeat after me. I, Brandon Johnson,
I, Brandon Johnson,
do swear that I will
do swear that I will
support the Constitution of the United States,
support the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the State of Colorado,
the Constitution of the State of Colorado,
and the laws of the State of Colorado,
and the laws of the State of Colorado,
and will faithfully perform the duties of the office of Director of the Montezuma County Hospital District,
and duties as the Director of the Montezuma County Hospital Director,
upon which I am about to enter
which I'm about to enter
to the best of my ability.
to the best of my ability.
Thank you, Brandon.
Yep.
Thank you, Brandon.
Thanks.
That's all I've got.
15 years from now, you'll be asking yourself why you did that.
Yeah, that figures.
What do you mean, 10 years?
20.
It's a
All
two-year
right.
term. What are you talking about?
Bryson, is that all you got?
That's all for the attorney's report. Yep.
All right. Is there anybody else have anything? If not, I entertain a motion for adjournment.
So move.
Second.
Got a second?
Second was Bill.
Yeah.
Bill.
Was it Jay and Bill?
Second was Bill.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 All right. Thank you. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you in a month.